I was just drifting and just living this world in this life. And so I wasn't really thinking about, I guess I had this thing of people would always say, oh, you should have won. And I guess you hang on to that little bit of hope that distracts you a little bit because you're like, oh, maybe the world is against me, or, like, yeah, like you go through a lot of different phases. But yeah, I think I just kept distracted by just being depressed. I think depression will distract you quite a lot, actually, because you just go down and time will just slow down so much, and it just takes a moment to pull you out. And for me, that moment was 2015. 2015 when I met Murda, who I'm very close friends with now.
Yes.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.
Upside of failure time, and we are with musician, artist, Brenden Praise. Brenden.
Yes.
Thank you for coming through.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. You know what's crazy?
What?
So many people are so excited that I'm coming onto the show. It's like, I don't know what you've done to people. Because everyone's just like, oh my gosh, really? It's like, okay.
I'm happy to hear that. I think
Yeah.
I so love this feature. It's such a nice way to round off the week for myself and the team because, we are inundated with very heavy current affairs, the highs and lows of the things in between. And it feels like on a Friday, we just get to have a conversation through things that we've overcome. And like, I'm all about attitude of gratitude and those things. And I just love that this conversation. So I'm glad people are even talking about it on that level.
No, it's a thing. It's a big thing.
Were you nervous though about it?
So I wasn't sure because I'm just like, upside, it sounds very like sad and stuff. Like, like it seems like it's going to be super deep. But then like I sent it to some friends and they're like, oh my gosh, I love that. I love that segment. It's like amazing. I always listen to it. So then I was like, okay, then now I have to do it.
You were like, let me see who she's had and I'll decide if I'm coming. Because you don't usually do interviews.
I don't like attention.
Did you choose the wrong industry maybe?
No, I feel like I'm a bit awkward when that's the case. So it's kind of like, it's still strange. Like even like now, like if people like greet me, like for me, it's still strange, So I don't want to make it more of that.
Yes.
Like I feel like I try to retain a little bit of the normalcy of life that I have.
But also, I mean, your life is on YouTube. You've monetized your life. So you're not trying to give it to people like me for free.
Yes. That is a big part of it. I won't lie.
You're like, why would anybody come to my channel? But I have to say, so here's my confession. It must have been before I came back to 702, but I was going through a period of just binge watching a whole lot of YouTube.
Wow.
And I got sucked into you and your wife's content. But what the specific one that I got sucked into was when you guys were speaking about how you found your home.
Oh.
And it's so just, I connected with it and it resonated so much with me because a lot of the things in my life worked out that way. And I shared it with people to say, you see, you can't say I'm not going to, look at a house because I can't afford it, or I'm not going to dream about that car because it's not in my price range.
Yeah.
Because 3 years down the line, you're like, actually, I am in that dream house. And I specifically remember sharing it with my sister, be like, you see, go look at houses.
Yeah.
Don't wait. And that video for me was like, God, man.
Yeah. No, that's been like the story of our life. Like for me, I'm like an avid window shopper.
Yes.
Like I believe in, you gotta see it first, And so, yeah, that's one of those moments I think that really changed our faith in just believing for stuff, because we were like literally the year before we couldn't afford a house that was three times less the price of the house. So it didn't even make sense.
Yes.
But yeah, it's if you believe it, I guess it happens.
So are you saying that 20 million rand house in property 24 that I said, hi, bed, I must go look?
You have to. And you have to feel sad if someone buys it. Like, if your heart's not broken.
I do. I'm like, I'll say, like, Mama, they bought my house.
How could they buy my house? That's how it has to be. Like, my dream now is, I always say, like, I wanna buy a Porsche, but I wanna spec it.
Oh,
Yeah, so
you're going levels.
yeah. So it's like a whole thing where you have to be on the system and they put you on a waiting list and whatnot.
Can I guess that it's the Cayenne?
No, it's the 911 Turbo that I like.
Aye. And what color is it?
Well, right now I haven't gotten to that point where I'm picking
I get you
colors,
said we're manifesting.
But currently I like I think it's called GT Silver, which
Yes.
is like a classic like Porsche color. But yeah, that could change. I mean, I've got quite a long way to go until I can actually be on the system and they can allocate one, because they build it for you specifically,
Yes.
which is the fun part. So that's like, for me, that's how I keep my mind and my excitement, by just dreaming of stuff like that, where it's like it seems seemingly unreachable, but I kind of know that, anything can happen.
And I feel like you've already budgeted 200K for sound for this Porsche. Am I right? You're going to add extra sound.
Well,
There'll be no boot space.
Well, you need 200K just to get a reservation for them. So I don't know if I have an extra one, but yeah.
Were you always this shy when you were a kid?
I don't know if I was shy or if I just had bad social skills. I grew up in a very small town, so I think I spent quite a lot of time with myself. And so I got really comfortable being with myself. And so even to this day, like, I really enjoy my own company, and I never feel the need to go out of my way to escape myself. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could describe me as shy, but I feel like I'm more antisocial. I think that's a better description.
But I think for me, the way that I interpret it is you are those people who get energy from yourself, and because you're a creative, you might be overwhelmed with too many energies around you. So you constantly need to be sourcing from self. Other people's energies possibly deplete you.
I think so. Yeah, I think over time, I think I've grown to learn now how to do it, because, like you said, the industry that I'm in requires you to sort of make an effort and get to know people. But yeah, I think after like after a night with people, I'm tired. I'm very tired.
I mean, you might be those people outside of the financial implications of COVID. It was a dream for you that people are not asking you to go out. Or
it was incredible.
Right?
It was lovely. Like, me and my wife had a great time. Like, we got to just work together in the house, shoot our content. It was really fun. Like, I think it's one of the things that really helped even with our careers. I think that was like you said, apart from, obviously the initial depression of not getting that affirmation that you get as a musician when you're performing all the time. But take that away and a few thousands of money that was lost. But we got to sort of be in a space that we were comfortable. Like, personally, I was very comfortable in that space.
Is this the Brenden that was on Idols? I never caught his surname at the time. He was extremely good on Idols as a contestant. And no, we were well, if it's him, I was heartbroken when he had to leave, had to exit. But is it the same guy? I just knew him as Brenden on Idols. I don't remember catching his surname. Is it him, Brenden Praise? Yo, that's great, eh? Thank you, Relebogile.
It is him.
And good luck for his career, Shame. I'm going to start following. Well, my apologies by saying say Shame. I'm not like, it's just that ngumdum dala, Bye.
Don't you love that Shame thing? Like,
I do.
Oh, nice Shame.
It's very kind. Shame, I get it. now I'm saying it.
It is the Brenden from Idols, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
I have a theory that if you had won, we wouldn't be sitting here together.
I don't know. I don't know.
My gut, I mean, obviously everything worked out exactly as it should. And we will come back to the Idols part of your journey. When you were 5-year-old Brenden, 5, 6, 7 years old, what did you understand failure to be? For you, what was failure?
Sure. 5, 6 years old. Can I even remember that long?
Earliest memories.
I think as a child, maybe it was not being, maybe not pleasing my parents enough. yeah, I think disappointing my parents at a young age, that was a biggie for me. Yeah, I think at 5 years old, that's really the only failure I could have. I was quite a smart kid, so I never really struggled in school. But I did struggle, like I said, socially and internally. I used to feel like I don't fit in because I was usually like among the black kids, I'd be the lightest black kid at the school. So I kind of would feel like I need to sort of act harder in a way, like, you know, like I'd feel soft, like I'm this soft kid.
And isn't that crazy though that society has put certain characteristics to the colorism wheel,
100%.
right? Because on the one hand, I wouldn't be surprised if people asked if you are black. If you're like, oh, are you colored? Are you like, what are you? What are you?
Yeah, I get that a lot. A lot of people think I'm colored.
And then on top of that, because they must decide how they're going to treat you, so they need to know. Now, like, oh, okay, you light-skinned. Oh, you better. Like, there's so many layers to it.
Yeah, it's a lot. Especially as a kid, I think it's a lot. It's a lot because you don't really have the vocabulary to explain like what is this feeling? Like, why do I feel like I need to overdo things? And it's, yeah, so I think I got into that rhythm where I would play a character a lot of times as a kid, you know, to be a little bit more like my other friends and not embrace, like now in my older age, at 29, I'm embracing, like I love the fact that I'm a soft person. In fact, I try and be as soft as possible. It's my thing now. But at the time, I felt like I need to be a little bit more like my friends.
There is somebody I know as well a light-skinned man, who said like there was that thing of exactly what you're saying of appearing to not be as hard or not being man enough. And he poured all of that into dance.
Okay.
So did you find an outlet early on to pour those feelings that you were unable to articulate into?
I think now that I look at it, music was definitely that. I think I found something that I was really good at, and it wasn't based on any external advantage that you might have at the time.
Yeah.
As we get to idols, I guess there was an external advantage in terms of appearance and whatnot. That would circulate a lot on Twitter and stuff. But at that age, I felt like I was just a good singer. And I was just good for my age, right? And so I definitely that was like something that I always knew, this is my calling card. It's something I can always play this card because I'm good at this. And no one can deny it across any spectrum. I'm good at it, and it's sort of undeniable. So I think that's where my energy went.
So having that fear of disappointing or not pleasing your parents, but still being a good academic kid at school, what were the moments like? And maybe highlight a moment where you like, there was this one time I did disappoint my parents and this is how I felt.
The hardest jump was, so all through primary, I was always top achiever, always number one. I would always clean out at the award ceremonies, prize giving.
Yes.
What's this thing? Dax learner at some point. And when I got to high school, I realized that I was better than average at being a singer. And so I started to put a lot more attention into that. And I started to sort of have less value on my academic gifts. And so for me, I think around 14, 15, I had like a switch where I was just like, yeah, I don't know if this top 10 thing is serving me currently.
Yes.
One, for my social status, it wasn't helping at all. So
they were mocking you, calling you boffin.
Yeah, I was just like this nerd, right?
Yes.
So I was just like, you know what? I can hover around top 15, 18 with ease. And
Yes.
I think let me keep it there. That's fine. You know, it's good for me. I'm not considered this smarty pants, but also people know, okay, he's quite intelligent. It
Yes.
works. And so I put most of my energy there, and I started working on a lot on my music. I would practice the piano like every day in my room. And because I lived in a small town, I didn't actually have friends in the town that I lived at. So all my friends were at school. So once I got home at like 2 o'clock, it was just me. So from then until my parents came back home, I'd just be in my room playing the keyboard and just learning a bunch of songs and doing covers and yeah.
So, as you started to get into your adolescence and you had already put this picture in your mind, like, okay, I'm going to hover here. At what point, especially prior to matric, did you say, actually, I'm not trying to hover there? Like, at what point, if that even happened to you?
So it never stopped, and that's where it became an issue with my parents because I just felt further, and I feel like also being an academic is something, it's like a muscle you have to exercise. And when you sort of step out of that world where you are like, you enjoy studying and whatnot, and you start to just rely on just natural intelligence, then you start to feed that muscle. So for me, it's like I really kept pushing it until like, how far can I go? Like, I remember even like when we did those, what are those exams you write in September? Those ones. The prelims.
Yes.
I remember I went into my math test and I hadn't studied at all.
Yeah.
I had not picked up a book. I was so confident that I'll at least get 40% for this thing. Like, there's no way I don't know 40% of what's in there. And that was the first time I think I failed my prelim, and I realized this was in like my matric year, and I realized, oh snap, if I don't pick it up for the final exam and I fail math completely, like, I'm out. Like, I have to do this whole year again. And that was like the only time, like, where for me it was like, okay, this has gone too far. But by then my parents had given up on the fact that I think they were a little bit saddened because I had so much promise as an academic student, and I was gonna get into all these universities, and then all of a sudden, like, my marks had dropped so low, but gradually, that it was like, now he kind of has to make this music thing work.
So here's my question, because you're a parent now.
Yes.
And you can obviously dip into your own childhood experiences, because what you're saying totally makes sense to me, like what you explained. But from the parent perspective, we're like, like, those friends can wait. We don't care about social standing, right?
Yes.
What are you going to take from what you experienced together with the wisdom you've learned over the years when your kids are teenagers?
I think my parents did it just about as good as it can be done, because they were very hard on me. And I think obviously now I'm reflecting, I'm skipping over a lot of stuff.
Yes.
But they were quite hard on me, but they had a level of grace where they gave me free will, which I think at that age, it's important to at least let, I'd like to, when my kids get to that age, I'd like to sort of let them know that I at least care about how they feel. And I consider that. I consider what it is they want to do, And for me, it was clear. I told them, I said, hey, I want to be a musician. And I'm not going to need all of this stuff to be but I'm going to get my matric, and then we'll see, we'll see what happens. But like, I have this gift, and I want to chase this gift. And they were like, yeah, but it's not sustainable. You can't really depend on it. All the stuff that parents should say. It's important disclaimers that you should give a child. But I think to give an environment where a child can go against the grain and not feel like if they fail, it's going to be the end of the world. And for me, it never felt like it would be the end of the world. It felt like I'm going to fail here and I'm going to let them down really badly, but they'll still love me.
Have you forgiven them?
It took a while. And I don't think I had to forgive them.
And I'll tell you why I specifically ask it that way, because as a creative, much as they loved you, they support you, and even if you fail, they're not going to stop loving you. But there will still be that feeling of like, do you know how great I could have been if you had supported me all the way?
Yeah. Look, I think they did a great job of still supporting me, even though maybe not all the way, but they really did support quite a lot. And I think And I think that's why for me it was so much easier. But what I did experience was, no, they were really there for me. But what I experienced was my mom would do this thing where, like, literally the first 5 years of my career, every time she saw me, she'd say, when are you going back to school? Because I dropped out of my engineering, sound engineering course. When I just say engineering, it sounds like,
Yeah.
like, yo,
They're like,
boy
that,
got brains.
that 40% got him in engineering.
My sound engineering course, I dropped out, I think, halfway through that because I was doing idols. And so for the first 5 years, I really had to overcompensate with my achievements. So I'd have to make sure whenever I go back home, I'm dressed amazing. I smell amazing.
You must look like you
I'm
got
doing
your
too
life
much.
together.
I had to do too much. And that literally for the first, I would just be changing cars every year. And I'd get home and my mom would be like, wow, what a nice car. When are you going back to school? And so that was a hard thing for quite a long time. But yeah, eventually I accepted it. Like, I accepted that I understand where they're coming from, and they looking out for me and they want the best for me.
Brenden, you mentioned earlier about this period you're going through of the multiple cars and, feeling like you have to do a lot. Do you still feel where you are in life right now that there's a part of you that still wants that validation? I mean, I was laughing on the inside when your mom was like, when are you going to finish? Because my dad still does that whole, like, the space on the wall is still empty. Where's your degree? And I've just told him to accept. I'll bring the honorary doctorate home when I get it in my 50s. But is there still a part of you, as successful as you are, as established as you are, that still feels like ish with your parents in regards to that thing of either it's a degree or a document or just, I don't want to say approval, but I think you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I think once we bought a house, I think that kind of changed quite a lot, because it was just one of those things where, like, it's kind of like, okay, this is now obvious. He's gotten somewhere, So yeah, I think after that, I felt a little bit more secure, and I didn't feel like I felt like they finally understood, and they were finally, like, really, like, happy for me, and they saw my vision realize. So yeah, right now I think I'm cool. I think if I'm struggling, it's maybe with my own self. Maybe, like, do I believe it? Do I believe I'm not a fraud? But yeah, apart from imposter syndrome, no, right now I think my parents, they like the best. They like my best friends. They get it, like, in fact, the last song I released, I played it for my dad first, and my dad was like, you need to drop the song, like, as soon as possible. Like, it's at that point now where they consume the work and they're so involved with what I'm doing.
Why was doing the Idols journey a choice that you make? Because many people that enter multiple second guess themselves, and of course there's the pre-production part of it that isn't aired, which are the pre-auditions.
Yeah.
And I know people who've stood in queues and decided, I'm actually not going to do this, when they actually see the number of people. What made you say, I'm going to do this anyway? And I'm wondering if a part of it was acting like you don't care whether you get it or not.
So obviously I went the year after Kaya.
Yes.
So that was the first time, like, I think black people realized.
You're like,
that,
we can win this
thing.
thing.
We can win this thing. So for me, so I always had this thing. I was like I watched that whole season, and every time he performed, I felt like I could do that. Like, I could at least do that. You know what I mean? And so when I went the next year, which was the most beautiful part, and this is why I say my parents were really, and my family was really there for me, because so I had started studying because I knew that the auditions were in Gauteng. So I purposely chose, like, a school in Gauteng, because I was like, I don't know any of these other places. This is where I'm going to go. And I'm from Mpumalanga, a very small town. I think there's like 3,000 people. So when I went to the auditions, I went after, so school had closed and people had gone home, and I just stayed at the commune. And I told my parents I'm going to stay another week because I'm doing this idols thing. And then I thought they were going to be, like, mad and whatnot. But instead, they actually came. Like, my dad and my sister came and they actually queued with me.
Oh, wow.
Because I queued the night before. This is how I knew like I was going to get somewhere. Because I was like, I knew I didn't want to wait in a long queue. So I went there the day before. I think 1 o'clock the day before I was there. I think I was like the 20th person on the queue.
Yes.
And so midnight that day, my family would like swap turns queuing while I would go
wow.
sleep in the car. And then, yeah, so I did that whole thing. But I never thought like I couldn't do it. I was very confident in myself as a singer. And like I said, like I knew that I could at least do what has been done. You know, like I don't know if I can reinvent the wheel here, but
Yes.
I can make a wheel. And that was my attitude into it. And I had no idea what to expect. And I had practiced for a long time because part of going to school for me was to do idols at the time. Because coming from a small town, that was the only opportunity I thought I can control this opportunity.
This is so crazy. So there's I was getting goosebumps as you're speaking about Kaya. So just last week, I was producing and directing him and the 2 finalists.
Really?
Right? So, isn't that crazy?
That's so
Anyways,
wild.
it's their farewell season. And when we were doing this event, it was prior to Thabo winning, but I got the opportunity to work, and we were sort of doing a performance to represent what idols could mean, old idols,
Yeah.
nostalgia via Kaya, and the future being these last 2 finalists. And I mean, Kaya is just an exceptional talent, just in just how he's grown his
Incredible.
career, and just an amazing person. And then juxtapose him on stage with these 2 young people who are freaking out
Sure.
about the finals.
Yes.
And I so just, my heart was with them as we were preparing for the show and doing the show. So as you were speaking about, I was like, my goodness, that's the other element that people don't think about is, for some people, a platform like an Idols is just, I can go to this competition.
Yeah.
But then the first black person wins, and it adds another layer
Yeah.
of meaning
Yeah.
that I think we don't forget. We forget, rather. And even for myself as a woman, there are things that, and that's why representation is important.
Extremely
that
important.
you don't even consider as a thing to do until you see that person there. And then you realize Thabo, who just won Idols, happened to have been a backup singer for Kaya at one time. And now
Sure.
he's the winner.
It's insane. I mean,
Right?
the cycle is crazy. But to this day, I mean, Kaya holds a very special place in my heart. Like I know his whole journey. He probably doesn't even know I know. I know all the songs he did because I watched it so religiously. And at the time, again, representation wasn't a word being thrown out. But we knew that we were witnessing something special. We knew that for the first time we're seeing ourselves on a platform where we've never really been like highlighted.
Right.
And that was like a huge moment. And to be honest, that was for me the changing point in terms of seeing that as an option, as a pathway that I could follow. And if he doesn't win that season, I don't think I audition the next year.
So then here's the question. I mean, we could end up having a whole conversation about the winners and those that don't win, because
Yeah.
the focus will be like, oh, those that don't win actually end up being very successful. And we could delve deep into why that is the case, the
Yeah.
winners' contracts and what happens with those that are supposed to be
Yes.
taking care of them and all of those things. But there is something, it does not matter how you put it, that happens when it's not your name being called out. And I'm so grateful I get to be behind the scenes of Miss South Africa, all these productions where these people have gone through a journey and you've put your life on hold.
Yeah.
So when they say Idol season 9 winner is, and the Steadicam comes around, and your heart is pouncing and you're holding hands with someone that you genuinely are going to be happy for them because you've been walking this journey together, but also you're like, please let it be me. And it's not your name, and you're still on camera, and you still have to be like, well, let me hug this person. But please describe that feeling, because a part of it is like, your goal was to win and you didn't win.
Yeah.
So we know it's not a failure, but in that moment, ke faili baba.
It's funny that you say that. So let me start by saying this. I've been going to therapy for the past 2 years.
And I love that you speak about that publicly. Can I just
And
say?
I've only just dealt with that scar because I didn't even know it was there.
What?
I didn't even know that it had changed my entire personality.
You lied. That moment?
That moment. And I remember what triggered it is I was on YouTube and it recommended me. YouTube recommended me to me. And I watched that part where they announced the winner. And because I'd never seen it from the other side, so I'd only experienced it. I watched it, and when they announced the winner, I literally saw myself die inside. Like I watched my eyes roll back and I died. And I know from that moment, I never ever, from that moment on, up until maybe 2 years ago, I never ever felt like I could be the best at anything. And so I would live such a mediocre life that I wouldn't take any risks that risked me failing or not being number one or being seen as a runner-up. I would do only the things that I was comfortable with just doing that. And so it took me having to go to therapy, seeing that my life is not where I want it to be, and trying to understand what is wrong with me. How come I can do all these challenges, I can lose a bunch of weight and then let myself go again and not commit fully? Why can't I commit fully to stuff? And I realized that I had been living in this shadow of being a shadow. And I was so comfortable with that. I was so comfortable with knowing that, you don't have to do it. You don't have to fully commit to something because, you'll be fine. And so when I did, as I'm doing the work, I realized that, that started that moment, when you put all your cards in like one basket or all your eggs in one basket and then the basket is just like thrown into like an ocean.
Brenden, so, I connect so much with your story being a creative by myself. And many people don't realize that, the radio thing happened later, which was, I guess, part of a different part of my calling and journey. But I also have those moments that I'm like, I realize I didn't get over not getting this and not getting this. So my question is, because you now identified this moment in your life.
Yeah.
And you're in your later 20s. It still takes a while to get over stuff. Is that why you didn't show up at the nominee announcement? Because you didn't want to be during the people if your name wasn't called for the SAMAs?
I think, it might be. It might. I've just, again, you've built a life based on like things that you believed were the right way for you, protecting yourself. And so a lot of that stuff is still like again, maybe I do like attending stuff, but I don't know because I just never did. Because I wouldn't put myself, again, one of the things I get
You are not even going to be at the awards.
Oh no, that was pre-planned.
Yeah.
That's our family vacation.
Yes.
But yeah, look, I'd go out and people would be like, "Oh, what are you doing now?" And I
Yes.
get that question quite a lot, to a point where like I just started not going out because I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's very hard to explain that you're working on something, but it's not yet working, and it's like I'm still a musician, but it's like it's not looking like it.
It's because I know why. You don't know how to articulate the things that are not tangible. So if I'm connecting back to what you're saying about
Yes.
your parents, the things that are tangible are cars, are houses.
Correct.
So if somebody says, what are you doing? Even if all you are doing is going to therapy and just getting out of bed, you are working on self.
And I've never looked at it that way. Like I just felt like I would feel like that's not enough. It's not a good enough answer. Like I need to say, I'm working on this movie. I am doing
Yes.
this. I am doing that. Oh, I've got this song that's charting. I
Yes.
just dropped there. We just went platinum here. Like that's like what I felt like that's what they want me to say. And I felt like I don't have that answer right now.
You know what you can say? You can start to say, sorry, bro, I signed a non-disclosure.
That's my
Can't
new
talk
thing.
about it.
I
Can't
love
talk
that.
about it. So with this fantastic journey, I mean, obviously you are saying you only realize the impact of not winning after the fact.
Yeah.
What became your cover-up? What was your cover-up? Distractions of just getting back to making music again? Because for all of us that experience any kind of trauma, when it resurfaces, it's when you start to notice, oh, the reason I didn't actually see this is because I was busy with this.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about kids and being a husband.
Yeah.
What was the real cover-up?
I guess I just that's a very good question. I've never thought about that. I just for a long time I was drifting. I was just floating through the world, and between 2013 was the show, and then between 2014 and 2015, I'd say those 2 years. Firstly, I was signed under a deal that I did not want to be in, but I had signed I forgot what they call a binding contract.
Yes.
And so I had to sign that deal. So I was stuck in a deal that wasn't allowing me to be a musician, but they'd paid me to, so I could make a living. Which I'm glad I took that advance. They always say don't take the advance. I took that advance, and you know what? It served me, because if I didn't have that advance, I wouldn't have been able to afford my apartment. But for that, I was just drifting and just living this world, in this life. And so I wasn't really thinking about, I guess I had this thing of, people would always say, oh, you should have won. And I guess you hang on to that little bit of hope that distracts you a little bit, because you're like, oh, maybe the world is against me, or, like you go through a lot of different phases. But yeah, I think I just kept distracted by just being depressed. I think depression will distract you quite a lot, actually, because you just go down and time will just slow down so much. And it just takes a moment to pull you out. And for me, that moment was 2015. 2015 when I met Murder, who I'm very close friends with now.
Yes. Murder, Bongani.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
of ex Black Motion, for those that don't know. Yes.
So I met him in 2015 at a gig, and I was performing just before them, and they were late for a show, and they wanted to go on during my slot. So their manager was like fighting my manager, or my brother, but at the time
he was your manager.
so they were fighting, and then my brother was like, no, you're gonna let him finish his set, and then Murder came, and he's like, what's happening? And they're like, no, Brenden doesn't want to get off, and Murder was like, no, let him finish his set. And then I finished my set, and as I got off, I guess he got to watch that last part of my set, and as I got off, he said, what are you doing on Monday? And at the time, like, I had nothing was going on in my life. I just got on that gig because that's my hometown.
Yes.
And I know the organizer. It's one of those things, and like.
But also you can sing, if we to give
and
you credit.
And I can sing, but like I've got no songs that are great.
Yeah.
I'm not really anyway, And then and that was the beginning of a friend that pulled me out of that depression, because for the first time I saw like a little bit of a light of, hey, here's an opportunity to create music, So yeah, I think I was depressed for quite a long time, and again. I didn't know that I was depressed. I mean, my wife now, who was my girlfriend for some of that period, was like, she always says like how like she'd visit me and I'd just be sleeping the whole day. And I just thought that was normal. I just thought I was tired,
Yes.
But like I had no desire to go out or to do anything fun. I'd have obviously moments where I'm cool and I'm myself. But then I'd also drift into these moments where I'm just like weird and I just don't want to talk.
Can I tell you something I learned last week? Is sometimes a lot of the time when people are exceptionally sad or going through a really low point, because healing requires rest.
Sure.
And sometimes you will find in those periods, I've learned, especially with conversations with my therapist, sleep, like actually rest. How are you going to heal from your traumas if you're not resting?
That's
give
true.
your brain and everything in your body a chant. Obviously, there is a limit where it becomes, now listen, you're doing this too much, let's, you know, but just as a food for thought. There's some wonderful WhatsApps that have come through. Relebogile, you're with my idol there. I love him to bits. I voted for him at the finale. I once met him at Midway Muse after a few years after Idols. He was so friendly and even gave me his phone number. I still follow him and his wife on Facebook to this day. Thank you, Charmaine. Another one says, I cannot wait to go watch Brenden on stage somewhere. So excited to hear of his success. God is so good. Been a fan of his music from the onset. I cried when he exited. Same as my feelings for Loyiso, and I'm in my 60s. This is from Tembile. Another one is saying, please tell Brenden I, for the longest time, refused to accept that he didn't win Idols. Even to this day, actually, is what they say. Another one says, Relebogile, loving your chat with Brenden. Please tell Brenden that he doesn't need to try to explain his need for privacy and preferring to chill and regenerating in the sanctity of his own space with just himself for company, and maybe he'll let somebody he trusts join him. His birthday, 5 February, makes his attitude to life a 7. The 7 is the spiritual seeker of the truth. They love their own company and privacy is everything to them. His life path is a 5, which is the seeker of freedom. So this is clearly somebody who's fully into numerology, right? Saying you don't stick to discipline for long. They are risk takers and love tasting, feeling, and experiencing life to the full. His problem is going to be balancing the 7's need for privacy and the excitement and attention seeking of the 5. Thank you to that numerologist that sent all of that. How do you feel when you get all of this love from people?
It's very cool. It's like one of the things that I really do like about everything, about the Idols journey and my whole career to this point. Like, I'm not one of those people who is annoyed by being quote unquote famous.
Yes.
Like, I will take as many pictures as people want to take. I don't mind taking pictures. Like, I get it. I absolutely get it and I appreciate it. So yeah, I really, really, like, I enjoy that part of my life.
Final thoughts on failure that you've learned to this point in your life that you'd love to share with everybody?
What have I learned? Jeez, I don't want to sound like a guru. I've learned you need to lean into it. You have to face it head on, and you have to be okay with it. And it has to transcend it being about the outcome and find a greater why. And I think that's what's helping me now, is everything I'm doing has to be supported by a greater why than just my the outcome that I would like to see. That's not going to be enough, because if I get that outcome, then it's like, okay, a new goal. And if I don't get it, then it's like, oh, I've failed. But if I have a greater why, I'm building something that's so much more bigger than myself. And I think it's a better like North Star to focus on.
702.
The upside of failure.
Sometimes failure is the foundation of greatest success stories.